All right, this is Unit 3 Math Review. This is just a few things that you need to know for our upcoming test on Friday. So the first thing is prime numbers. So remember that prime numbers are numbers that can only be multiplied by 1 and that number. So let's take a look at what those could be. So for example, 2 is a prime number because 2 can only be multiplied by 2 and 1. You can't multiply any other numbers to get 2. And let's look at another one. So let's go to the next number, 3. 3, can you multiply anything by 3 other than 1? You can't. So 3 is a prime number because 3 can only be multiplied by 1. Let's go to the next number, 4. Can you multiply anything to get 4? You can do 1 multiplied by 4, and that would get 4. But you can also do 2 multiplied by 2, and that also gives you 4. So 4 is not a prime number. Let's look at the next one, 5. Can you multiply anything by 5 other than 1? You can't. So 5 multiplied by 1 is the only one that you can do, so 5 is a prime number. So you have to remember that numbers that can only be multiplied by 1 and that number are considered prime numbers. Now let's look at factors. Factors, the numbers when multiplied together equal the number you are looking for. So think of a rainbow. So let's take the number 20, for example. And let's look at all the things that you can multiply to get 20. You can multiply 1 by 20, and that is the same as saying 20. You can multiply 2 groups of 10, and that's the same as 20. And you can multiply 4 groups of 5, and that is the same as 20. So these right here are called factor pairs. And factor pairs are what you're going to have to know for the test. So again, I said think of a rainbow, because we can do 1 and 20, and that gives me the same as 20. 2 and 10, which is the same as 20, and 4 and 5 is the same as 20. So all of these numbers are factor pairs. All right, the next thing in this review is writing equations, and you're going to have something similar to this on your test, so make sure that you're really understanding what the problem is asking. So let's take a look at the example that I'm providing. The number 48 is 6 times as large as 8. Write this comparison as a multiplication equation. So you want to really take a look at some keywords that the problem is going to be providing you. So let's look at some of those keywords. So let's look at the second sentence. It says, write this comparison as a multiplication equation. All right, so some keywords are multiplication there for me. And I know when writing multiplication equations, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to need a multiplication side. I also know that in equations, I also need an equal sign. Let's take a look at some other keywords that we have here. So the word is also a keyword. And so let's go ahead and let's look at what is means. Is actually means equals. So the number 48 equals. So I can go ahead and I can put 48 right here because I know 48 equals. And let's take a look at some other keywords. We already know that it's a multiplication equation, but times also means multiplication. So we have to go ahead and we have to fill in these two spots right here. And the two numbers that I have are 6 and 8. So let's take a look at 6 and 8 and let's plug them in there and let's see if 6 groups of 8 is the same as 48. If you know your multiplication facts, then you know whether or not this is true or not. If you're still struggling, go ahead and choral count or skip count to see if it's correct. So let's skip count by 6. Let's do 8 of them and let's see if that equals 48. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put 8 lines down because I know that I'm looking for, I'm skip counting by 6s 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, let's go ahead and let's skip count by 6 to make sure that 6 groups of 8 is the same as 48. So I start with 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48. And in fact, that is correct. So 6 groups of 8 is the same as 48. And there you go. There's your equation. Alright, so the next thing that I'm going to teach you is finding the area and finding the perimeter. So let's take a look at the example that's being provided. If Old River was planning to build a garden that was 18 feet by 12 feet, what is the area and perimeter of the garden? So let's go ahead and let's find the area first. So finding area, I know that I'm going to have to multiply. So let's go ahead and let's plug in my numbers. I have one side is 18 and the other side is 12. So since I know that finding area means to multiply, I'm going to multiply 18 times 12, or 18 groups of 12. So I can already go ahead and I can set this up in an area model. So the first thing that I have to do is decompose 18 into 10 and 8, and then decompose 12 into 10 and 2. So then let's just go ahead and let's cross multiply. I know 10 groups of 10 is the same as 100. I know 8 groups of 10 is the same as 80. 10 groups of 2 is the same as 20. And 8 groups of 2 is the same as 16. Then all I'm going to go ahead and do is go ahead and add all of these numbers together. So I have 100 plus 80 plus 20 plus 16. And let's add it. 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 6 is the same as 6. 0 plus 8 plus 2 plus 1 is the same as 11. Put my 1 down, carry my 1, and 1 plus 1 is the same as 2. So I know that my area is 216. Alright, the next thing is finding perimeter. I know that when finding perimeter, it's the same thing as adding. And what we're adding is all of the sides together. So let's go ahead and let's plug them in. My first number is 18, and my second number is 12. If I know that this side is 18, I know that the bottom is automatically going to be 18. And if this side is 12, the opposite side is also going to be 12. And now all I have to go ahead and do is go ahead and add these numbers together. So I'm going to add 18 plus 18 plus 12 plus 12. Alright, let's add them together. I know that 8 plus 8 plus 2 plus 2 is the same as saying 20, so I'm going to put my 0 down, carry my 2, and 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is the same as saying 60, so I know that my perimeter of this is going to be 60. There you go. Just remember that finding area, you're going to multiply both sides, and then finding perimeter, you're going to add all of the sides together. Alright, the next thing that you're going to see on your test is something called a distributive property. And we went over this in class. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to have an equation that you're going to have to find the correct way that it's written in a distributive property. So whenever you see distributive property, go ahead and write out the equation that is given. So let's look at this example. This is 28 groups of 15. So my first step that I'm going to have to do when we're doing distributive property is go ahead and decompose this. Okay, so I'm going to decompose the 28 into 20 and 8, and I'm going to decompose this 15 into 10 and 5. So then you want to take a look at how many numbers you have. You have 4 numbers right there. So you automatically know that you're going to end up having 4 parentheses. So in between each parentheses, you're going to add a plus sign. So I have 1 set of parentheses, 2 sets of parentheses with a plus sign, 3 sets of parentheses, plus sign, and my 4th set of parentheses with a plus sign. And take a look at what the equation is. It's going to be a multiplying times. So I'm going to go ahead and inside I'm going to put a multiplication symbol. Then my next step is to go ahead and multiply and then put them in. So I know that I'm going to have to multiply 20 by 10, so I'm going to go ahead and put 20 and 10 in my first one. And I'm also going to have to multiply 20 by 5. So I'm going to go ahead and put 20 and then 5. And so I noticed that I'm done with my 20. So now I have to go ahead and I have to move on to my 8. So I have to multiply 8 groups of 10. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write 8 groups of 10. And then I have to multiply 8 groups of 5. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply 8 groups of 5. And then that's basically as simple as it is. It's just making sure that when you have the equation and it's asking for distributive, go ahead and decompose it and then cross multiply, seeing how many numbers you have when you decompose, put that in parentheses, and then cross multiply it. Remember that some of them is going to be multiplication that's switched. So it may say 10 groups of 8 or 5 groups of 8. Remember, this is the same exact thing. It's just flip-flopped. So that's distributive property. All you have to do, decompose, and then plug them in into parentheses. Okay, so the next thing that's going to be in our test is conversions, and the 3 main things that are going to be there are hours into minutes, feet into inches, and pounds into ounces. So let's take a look at the first one. So we know that 1 hour is the same as 60 minutes. 1 foot is the same as 12 inches, and 1 pound is the same as 16 ounces. So on your test, you're going to get things like if I have, let's say, 3 hours, I want to know how many minutes that is. And so if you know that 1 hour is 60 minutes, you're going to have to multiply 3 by 60 in order to find how many minutes that is. So you can just go ahead, again, set it up in an area model. 60 multiplied by 3. We know that 3 multiplied by 0 is the same as 0. And I know that 3 groups of 6 is the same as 18. So 3 hours is the same as saying 180 minutes. Let's take a look at feet into inches. For your test, you're going to have something like, let's say, 8 feet is the same as how many inches? And so again, you're going to have to know if 1 foot equals 12 inches, I'm going to have to multiply 8 groups of 12 in order to find how many inches that is. So again, set up like an area model. 10 and 2, because you're decomposing the 12, and then 8. 8 groups of 2 is the same as 16, and then 8 groups of 10 is the same as 80, and then 80 plus 16 is the same as 96. So you know that 8 feet is the same as 96 inches. All right, let's take a look at the last one, which is pounds. For example, let's say that you have something that is 4 pounds, and you want to know how many ounces that is. So again, if you know that 1 pound is 16 ounces, you're going to have to multiply 16 times 4. So again, set it up in your area model. 10 and 6 and then 4. Multiply 10 groups of 4 is the same as 40, and then 6 groups of 4 is the same as 24. Add those two together and you have 64. So you know that 4 pounds is the same as 64 ounces. And so that's pretty much all you have to do. Just make sure that you memorize that 1 hour equals 60 minutes, 1 foot equals 12 inches, and 1 pound equals 16 ounces. And if you have more than 1 hour, 1 foot, and 1 pound, you're going to have to multiply that number by either 60 minutes, 12 inches, or 16 ounces. Alright, the next thing that you're going to deal with on your test is something with patterns. And so let's take a look at the example that I'm giving you. You're going to get something like this on your test or something that's similar. So let's take a look at it. It says, write the first 4 terms in a number pattern that starts with 3 and each consecutive term is 5 times larger than the previous term. All right, so we know that we're going to start with the number 3 because it says that the pattern starts with 3. Let's take a look at, now we have to find the second term. And it says that the second term is 5 times larger than the previous term. And my previous term was 3. And so I know that this second term is going to be 5 times larger than the previous, which is 3. So I'm going to write my equation, 5 times 3. And you should know that on the top of your head because you know your multiplication facts. So 5 groups of 3 is the same as 15. Then let's go ahead and let's take a look at the third term. And I know that the third term is going to be 5 times larger than the previous term. And the previous term was 15. So let's go ahead and let's write that equation. 5 times 15, because 15 was my previous term. And I know that each term is getting 5 times larger. So let's go ahead and let's put this in our area model, decomposing the 15 into 10 and 5. And then 5 multiplying by it. So 5 times 5, or 5 groups of 5 is the same as 25. And 5 groups of 10 is the same as 50. And then if I add those together, 50 plus 25 is the same as 75. All right, my last term, my fourth term. I know that my fourth term is going to be 5 times larger than the previous term, which is the third term. And the third term was 75. So I know that this fourth term is going to be 5 times larger than that. So let's go ahead, let's set it up in my multiplication, 5 groups of 75, and then let's set it up in an area model to solve it. Decompose the 75 into 70 and 5, and then multiplying that number by 5. So 5 groups of 5 is the same as 25, and then 70 groups of 5. So 5 and 0 is 0, and then 5 and 7 is the same as 35. And then when I add 350 to 25, I get 375. So remember, you have to look at the previous term and multiply that previous term by whatever number it says is larger. So for this example, it was 5 times larger. You may get problems that are 3 times larger, 4 times larger, 5, 6, 7 times larger. So you have to look back at your previous term, and then in order to get the next term, you're going to have to multiply that previous term by whatever times larger it is. Okay? Alright, so these are some ways that we've been practicing multiplying, and then I'm going to give you a next slide. I'm going to give you some one last way that we have been practicing. So I've been using a lot of the area model, and in order to do the area model, you have to decompose your numbers into a friendly number, and then the number that's after it. So 21 I decompose into 20 and 1, and then 13 I'll decompose it into 10 and 3. And then I'll go ahead and I'll write 20 and 1, and then 10 and 3. And then all you have to do is multiply each number. So 1 and 10, if you multiply together, is the same as 10, and then one group of 3 is the same as saying 3. And then I know that 10 groups of 20 is the same as 200. I know that because all I have to do is multiply the 1 and the 2, which gives me 2. And I know that every time I have a 0, it means a place value. And so since I have 2 zeros, that means 2 place values. So my first place value, my second place value. And then that gives me 200. And then next I have 20 groups of 3, which is the same as 60. And then all you have to do is go ahead and you have to add these terms together. So 200 plus 60 plus 10 plus 3 is the same as saying 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 3 is the same as 3. 0 plus 6 plus 1 is the same as 7. And then 2 and nothing is the same as 2. So 21 groups of 13 is the same as saying 273. Next, we're going to go into partial products. And then what you're going to go ahead and do is basically you're just multiplying and then you're going to add at the end. So I'm going to start with 3 groups of 1. So 3 times 1 I know is the same as 3. Then I have to go 3 groups of 20 because I know that 2 is not just a 2, it's actually a 20. So 3 groups of 20 is the same as 60. Then I have to go ahead and I have to multiply this 1 and this 1, but this is not just a 1, this is actually a 10. So I'm going to have to write 10 groups of 1, and that is the same as saying 10. And then I'll have to multiply 10 groups of 20 because I know that this is not just a 2, it's actually a 20. So 10 groups of 20, and since I did my previous one, that's the same as saying 200. Then you just go ahead and you add them together. So 3 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is the same as 3. 6 plus 1 plus 0 is the same as saying 7, and then the 2. Alright, and the last way that I'm going to teach it is a lattice method. And I found that a lot of the students found this to be an easier way, but I would like them to use the area model, but if this is a way that they feel most comfortable with, as long as they understand it, I'm okay with it. So setting it up in lattice method. So I have 21 groups of 13, and this is really similar to an area model. So I set it up just like an area model, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set it up, but instead of decomposing the 21 into 20 and 1, each box is just going to have the number. So it'll be 2 and 1 and 1 and 3. And then the next thing you do is you go from corner to corner, you draw a line. So corner to corner I draw a line, corner to corner, then corner to corner and extend it, then corner to corner. And then the next thing I do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply. I'm going to do 1 group of 1, which is the same as saying 1, but you need to put it into 2 digits. 1 in 2 digits is the same as saying 0, 1. And then 3 groups of 1 is the same as saying 3, so 0, 3. Then 1 group of 2 is the same as saying 0, 2. And 3 groups of 2 is the same as saying 6, so 0 and 6. So I'm done multiplying. Next, all I have to do is add. So this is going to be added together. These numbers are going to be added together. And this number is going to be added together. And then this last one. So you're going to start from the bottom. So 3 plus nothing is the same as saying 3. 6 plus 0 plus 1 is the same as 7. And then 0 plus 2 plus 0 is the same as 2. And I don't need to add that 0, so my answer is 273.